And good evening, everyone. This is Gilbert King Elisa, and I will be broadcasting for the next few segments on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. This is something new that I am trying from my computer, testing the capabilities of Facebook Live as well as streaming directly live into YouTube. What I wanted to talk about today was surviving your life. And I was thinking about that because over the last few weeks, well, yeah, pretty much since the beginning of the year, we're in the second month of this new year. And a lot of conversations that I have had with random people, and many of these conversations have been with strangers. And a lot of these conversations have been with people who have been working for me via the transportation company Lyft. And one thing that I have come to understand is, regardless of who you're talking to, everyone is going through something. Everyone is doing their best to come to terms with this thing that we call life. And some people are doing it better than others, and it's usually because some people have better methods to deal with life than others. And none of these methods are perfect, and some of these things that people are going through, many times they are invisible. Many times there are things that people will try to hide from strangers, many times understandably, because when you speak to many people, you will see that the last thing that they are ready to talk about is something that is perceived as negative. And that thing that's perceived as negative is the need for some kind of intervention in your life in the form of mental health, which seems pretty ironic because some of the things that are not considered negative or ironic, be that as it may, strange, will be some of the ways that people turn to medicate and try to find some kind of solution for their own problems in their life in the forms of drugs, in the forms of alcohol, and other forms of destructive behavior just to deal with their life. And this is something that can happen to young people. This is something that I've seen a lot of older people try to deal with it too, just dealing with the changes of their life, the transitional periods, in the death of someone or the birth of someone, the loss of independence, the loss of financial security, the introduction of a new hobby that is not within their control. They're free. The pre-assumptions about someone else's character, dating, marital strife, relationships, and all these things will cause a lot of stress in someone's life. And it could even be your birthday coming up. It could even be a recent divorce. But all these things add to the stresses of someone's life. It can be your parents expecting you to lead a certain lifestyle, to stay away from a certain race, to abide by the rules of a certain religion. All these things will become stressors in your life. And what a lot of us don't realize is that many times when we see people laughing, many times when we see people perceived as happy, what they're really doing is trying to mask something that they don't want to show, and that's them when they are by themselves. Because something that people learn early on is that the only face that most people in society as we have it now are comfortable showing them. The only face that many people are willing to accept is that face of happiness, of joyness, of being joyful. But when you actually begin to open up and start telling someone about your problems, it could be your parent, it could be your teacher, it can be your partner. Once you start talking about the things that really bother you, that you've really been concentrating on, or sometimes can't even begin to try to handle on your own, you start realizing that people will start changing the subject, or they just won't know what to say, because either they're going through it and they don't know how to deal with it, or they see it as something that they don't want to attach to their life because they see it as something that is contagious. And if it's something that they already have a predetermined outlook on, as a meaning, well, this is something that I already consider negative, I don't want this type of energy in my life, and anything that you say that can be deemed as a little bit too personal, they'll try to avoid it because it makes them feel uncomfortable. So many times it's not the exact problem that you're having, but they know that after you stop talking, either they're going to have to say something, or you're going to, they feel that they're going to be expected to share a little bit of something that's personal within their life that they're not ready to address with you, because they know that, hey, if people start thinking that I'm crazy, if people start thinking that I'm weak, if people start thinking that I can't handle my life, then they're going to see me in a way that I never intended for them to see me. With that being said, you might go through your whole life not realizing that there are ways that you can get help. And you can go through your whole life making believe that you're someone else when you're really not. You can go through your whole life making believe that the people that are supposed to stand as people who are important in your life should not be held in such high esteem, because they really not looking out for your best interest. And these are the people that you have to watch out for when it comes to your mental health. And it's something that many times is not visible, most times because for these same reasons that we just mentioned. You just don't want to show it. You don't want to show a side of you that's considered weak. With weakness comes, you feel that you will be ostracized with the revelation that, hey, perhaps I'm not as strong as you thought that I was. Hey, perhaps you can't handle a situation. I was speaking to a man that was taking care of a woman and her child. This was a Lyft driver, and he was saying that they just separated. And in that separation, he lost contact with a girl that he was bringing up as his own daughter. And when he was in the taxi with me, he shared with me some very personal things. And what he got from that conversation was that many of the things that he was feeling inside, he didn't have any place to go with it. And just being able to share and open up a little bit about it with me, he was then able to just let that pressure off his chest. And what happens many times, if you don't get that pressure off your chest, that will become something that's very detrimental to your health. It's something that's very detrimental to your way of life. You might even start growing older sooner than you're supposed to. You might realize that, hey, this problem that I thought was a big problem, it's only temporary. And you might also realize that, hey, perhaps it's not as big of a problem because there are millions of other people also dealing with it in their own way. And I was happy I was able to be that person for him at the moment. But I do realize that, like with any other problem, there comes a moment that there's no one around. And so you grab to the nearest things that are available to you. And usually those are the things that you should really stay away from. Those are situations that make you feel comfortable. And that can be other people, That can be alcohol, that can be drugs, that can be risky behavior when it comes to taking risks without the proper precautions. And those are the times that you realize, hey, uh, I'm not being my best right now, and you know you're going through it. It's like a person who um, the doctor said you have to watch what you eat because you have diabetes, and they're eating all kinds of food and not taking care of their body, and they know they're doing it, but at that moment they know it's wrong, but they just don't know how to stop it. How do you go about it? Or they don't feel the energy to stop it. And these are all signs of you not being at your best, and sometimes clinically labeled is considered depression. And some of these signs of depression that a lot of people can't get their head around is that the things that you really enjoy doing or that you once enjoyed doing now start feeling like it's a burden on you. Whether it's going to the gym, whether it's getting up and working on something that you really, that before it made you excited, whether it's visiting someone. Sometimes you want to talk to your friends and you figure, well, let me not go into their lives because I don't want to bring them down, or I don't think that they'll understand exactly what I'm going through. And so many times, especially now in an age of information, what many people will do is take all these feelings that they have and they'll try to bottle it up into something that really doesn't make sense in their life, but they're just trying to get over that feeling that they feel that they don't have any connection to, but they know that it's going to be there. For people who are feeling depressed, sometimes the hardest thing to do is just getting up from bed that morning. And you'll see that you have enough energy to go to work, but you won't have energy to do anything else. You'll see that you have enough energy to fulfill everyone else's needs, but you won't feel any energy to getting done the things that you know will put you in the place that you will be your best. And many times what we'll do is we'll blame someone else for us feeling this way. We'll blame the person that we feel inflicted this kind of pain into our life. It can be the last person that we went out with. It could be the current person that we're going out with, without realizing that the person that needs to make the change is us. And even though that some of the things that about someone else that you have been with can trigger some things inside of you, you have to exercise that muscle of rejection. You have to exercise that muscle of going through things that are not comfortable to you. So then they become a lot easier. Because if everything that you do is something that you're going to not be able to breathe, not be able to sleep, not be able to handle the things that are in front of you, it's going to become something that is not going to get better. If you try to avoid your feelings, they're not going to go away. They're just going to manifest themselves in another negative form of behavior. So I can put up a million memes like a lot of people do nowadays when they break up with someone, or when they're mad at society, or when they want to get a message across that sometimes your words will fail you and you think that, hey, this is something that I can't deal with right now. But what the real thing that's going on is, yeah, this is going to help me deal with it right now. It's like putting a Band-Aid over a big leak that's coming down from your ceiling. It might stop it for a split second, but once that Band-Aid comes off and the adhesive wears off, you're still there to deal with your own feelings. Now, with that being said, a lot of the pain and suffering that you will endure in your life, if you let it, will revolve around this thing called relationship. A lot of the pain and suffering that you will endure in your own life is going to be put there in the form of relationship, but mostly because of your own ego as it pertains to the relationship that you had and that you once had, or you would want to bring back. With that being said, You might want to ask the question, when you break up with someone and you start missing what you don't have anymore, what you once had, and what can never be again, you might want to ask yourself, what did I really lose? Because the question that many people will ask in this situation is, well, what can I have back? What can be again? And time naturally, or unnaturally, depending on how you see it, keeps moving us forward even if we don't want to. It's the way that we all operate. The body operates, nature operates. You could cut your nails off now, but in a few weeks you're going to see that they start becoming the same length that they once were. The same thing about your hair. It could grow and then you cut it off and it'll keep growing again. Just keep pushing us forward. Doesn't matter how much we try to keep it back. And so the question you have to ask is, what did I really lose? Because many of the times when you look at a relationship and what you say you lost, what you really lost was the feeling of you saying, hey, I am with someone. And I say this specifically around this time of year because this time of year a lot of people feel alone because the days are getting shorter. Valentine's Day is coming up. The new year just began, and if you entered the year with someone and now you don't have anyone, you feel like you've lost something. If you came in the year with no one and you still have no one, you might feel like you need someone this year. These are all things that you can have if you want to. These are all things that you want to be with someone. It's really not hard to be with someone. But the kind of person that you want to have might not be accessible to you. I'm going to say that again. You can be with anyone that you want. No one has to be alone. But the kind of person that you feel that you want might not be accessible to you. And that could be something that can make you feel like you are missing out on something. And usually this time of year, you go out and you look at what someone else is doing. You see who they're going out with. You see what they're doing in their personal life, or they just told you, I don't want to be with you. And you realize, hey, what makes me so wrong that I can't be with the kind of people I want to be? And the simple answer is this. No one is obligated to be with you. And you realize that once someone that you're not interested in comes up to you and tries to get your attention, and you see how easy it's for you to reject that person. So once you start realizing that no one owes you anything, you start putting your ego in check, and you start realizing, well, I don't have to be with anyone, but no one has to be with me. You don't have to be with anyone, but no one has to be with you. It's a feeling that you have because you want to experience something that perhaps was there or perhaps that you've never felt. But no one is obligated to you. That's the beauty of life. You can want something as much as you can and you just don't get it. But you might be able to find it someplace else and it'll be different, but it won't be the same. Our ego is the thing that's telling us we want it to be the same. And our ego is the same thing that's telling us if this person doesn't like us or this person doesn't love us, there must be something wrong with them. But our ego and our low amount of confidence and self-esteem is also the thing that tells us because this person doesn't want to be with me, there must be something wrong with me. And then you start to realize there are millions of people in the city where you live, and there are billions of people worldwide that you haven't even given a chance and you haven't even considered yet. Now, the reason many of us want to go back to something that was is because that's what feels comfortable in your life. That's one reason. The second reason is because when people see them, they'll tell them, they're quick to remind you what happened to the person you were with. And I used to like that person so much. What did he do to mess that up? You go around family members and they want to know, hey, you were so happy when you were with this person. What happened? Another reason is I'm just bored and I'm not doing enough in my life. So you have to consider any and every possibility when it comes to being with someone. But the one thing and the most important thing you probably have to realize is that you have to get used to being comfortable with yourself. Now think about it. If you go to apply for a job right now, well, not right now because it's the weekend and it's late at night, but if you go to apply for a job and the people who are about to hire you, they start talking negatively about the person that they were just with, or the person that just quit the company, or the person that they just had to fire, and the whole interview, instead of getting to know you, they keep trying to talk to you about how bad their experience was with the last person. Are you going to think, hey, this is a great company because now I'm coming in and they're going to think of me in a great new way? Or are you going to think that this company is really going to give me a great start? Are you going to think that if you ever decide to leave that company, this company is a company that's not going to try to ruin my name or try to ruin your reputation once you're no longer with them? So you have to consider that when you are addressing someone you have been out with. Because it's quick to people to go to their friends and always point the finger and blame the person that they were with. But what you want to also realize is that sometimes things just don't work. As you saw with my product review a little while ago, as much as I tried to fit that antenna transmitter into the antenna, it just would not fit. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means that it doesn't work for that antenna. And the quicker you get to realize that certain things just don't fit, you can move on. There's nothing that you lost that you can't get back besides your time. You can lose a lot of time, but you can also gain a lot of insight as to what not to do. As you get older, one of the things that you should master doing is not only getting used to being with yourself, because you are going to, most of your life, you're going to spend it with yourself. There's sometimes that you'll meet people that are serial daters, and they have been in a relationship that since the beginning, since they can date, they've always been in a relationship and never had some time to themselves. And sometimes people say that's lovely, but you also have to consider, if you've been with yourself for a long time, you should know yourself and how you react to certain situations. You might realize that, hey, I didn't need to be with anyone. I thought it was something I wanted because of the people around me. I thought it was something I wanted because that's what everyone else was doing. But that's why it's important for you to surround yourself with people that not only are able to understand you, but people that want to be around you. So someone that has just left you, why do you want to be around that person? Which means, why do you want to willingly lose more time instead of gaining what you now have, which is your independence and a chance to have a clear understanding, analysis of what you want, where you want to go, what you want to do, and you should learn to be yourself, best company, and welcome people as if they were a new person. No one wants to feel as if they are a car with 110,000 miles when you just bought it. Even that new car wants to be treated as if it's something that you're going to cherish because you're using it now. You have it now. No one wants to be treated, hey, you know what? I'm going to treat you like with the baggage that this other person left behind. When you go to a hotel room, you go on vacation, you open the room, you walk into that hotel, you want new sheets. You don't want someone else's dirt. You don't want someone else's linens. You don't want someone else's grime in that bathroom. You want to be taken, you want the room to be left new for you to use. You want that room to be ready for your new experience, whatever you're doing there, whether it's just jump around and twirl around in the sheets, or whether you decide to bring in a new partner, or whether you decide to just look out the window. You want to treat that new experience like a new experience. You want to treat that new person applying for that job not like the old person. because you should have learned something from that last person you hired as to what to do different. But comfort will enslave you more than trying new things. The things that you are comfortable with will keep you from trying new experiences, from new things. And once you start thinking, hey, this is the way that I've always done things, you stop considering, how about trying new possibilities? Once you start considering, hey, the way that I have always done things is something that's always going to be because this is the way I've always done it. It doesn't have to have any logic, rhyme, or reason to it. You start to realize, hey, I don't always have to approach things as a man. I don't always have to approach things as a woman. I don't always have to approach things as a white guy. I don't always have to approach things as a black guy. You can approach things as they come. And one of the limits that many people put on themselves is approaching things by what other people expect you to approach things like. So if someone asked you, or would have asked you a couple years ago, who are you going to vote for in the presidency, and you're a black person, and if you don't say Obama and the person who asked you the question was a black person, you might be expected to answer this way. But once you start being someone else, so people like you, you start losing a little bit of yourself. A little bit at a time. You start losing a little bit of yourself. Because now you're trying to change who you are to an extent in life, you're going to have to play that game. But if you're going to survive life, within yourself, you have to know your inner dialogue, your conversation with yourself has to be truthful. Am I doing this because I want to do this, or am I doing this because this is what's expected of me? You can be with a fat person with a great personality that you just love because you don't mind them being fat. You don't mind their personality. You love it. You don't mind being around this person, but you might tell yourself, I'm not going to hang around this person. I'm not going to be with this person because I know that I'm going to have people chirping in my ear telling me, wow, I didn't know you like fat people. Wow. I didn't know that you were into people who were chubby. Wow. Did your mother know you're going out with someone who looks like this? And you can substitute the word fat with black, with tall, with skinny, with poor, with educated. Because you can say, well, I am the most educated person in the world, or I am the strongest person in the world. But if you are still depending on what everyone around you thinks of you so that you may act, then you're missing the whole point. You're missing the whole point of being a strong person, of having strength. Surviving your life will include many times that you are on your own. You're by yourself. You're going to realize that during those times that I was with myself was when I got the strength to be able to face this thing called life. You're going to realize that many of those times that you felt that no one else wanted to be with you is that, wow, this is why I'm able to be in the situation or go out with this person now. So again, if you have trouble being around your own company, this might be a clear indication as to why someone might have trouble being around you. I'm not saying that, again, I'm going to say this again. If you have a problem being by yourself and in your own company, it might be a sign to yourself that, hey, I'm not ready for a relationship because I don't even like being around myself. You might hear people tell you, hey, wow, it looks like you're always by yourself. And a good answer to that might be, yes, I like my own company. Or some people might tell you, well, it looked like you're always going to interesting places. Yes, because I like to go to interesting places. Now, this is closer to me to a form of being independent. You don't know what makes someone else happy. And it's almost impossible to know what makes someone else happy because that thing keeps changing for whoever we ask the question to, or whoever's answering the question. But one thing you should know is that what makes you satisfied with your life. And those things change from people to people. So if you are comfortable with the things that you're doing, you don't have to explain to anyone why it is that you like doing what you're doing. You don't have to explain to anyone why you enjoy the things that you're doing. You don't have to explain to anyone why you go where you go. You don't have to explain to anyone, hey, my life is my own. Because you were born by yourself. You will die by yourself. Regardless of how harsh that sounds, that's a reality. So you'll soon realize that a big part of surviving life has to do with stop worrying about what other people think. The quicker you learn to realize that you are an adult, and even if you're not an adult, you're an early teen, or if you stop worrying about what other people think, not just because you think that you're grown up, you don't have to listen to any grown-ups, but the quicker you start to realize your thoughts are your own. Now, when you're living under someone else's roof, your life is still not your own. But if you are making your way in the world, you're paying for your own bills, you're taking care of your own health and your well-being, your life is your own. So that's why probably one of the best things that you might want to do is move out of your parents' house. If you're a teenager coming up, if you need to save money, save your money. Always invest in yourself. Don't expect other people to invest in you if you haven't first and foremost invest in yourself. That's why I go to so many places, because you have to invest in yourself. You can't worry about what someone else thinks about you. Now, you can't worry about what someone else is doing also. If you worry about what someone else is doing, you're taking and you're distracting from your own life. Now, right now, the way that the culture is, you have a 24-hour feed into the life of what anyone is doing at any particular moment, or what they want you to believe that they're doing. So you can go on their feed on Facebook, on Instagram, on anywhere. You can go on Snapchat, you can go to their website, you can go to your text messages. You get to see what everyone else is doing, WhatsApp. But it doesn't mean that you have a clear understanding as to what that person is doing. Now, the problem with this is that many people not only just look at what someone else is doing, they start comparing their life to what someone else is doing. And they start competing with someone else. They start royalty rating someone else. This all adds to the degeneration of your life, of your spirit, of the things that you can be doing, your fulfillment in someone else's life by sharing your life. The thing that most likely has you down at a moment is comparing yourself to what someone else is doing. Now, you have something inside of you that possibly many people don't know and many people are not going to ever see. But one thing you're going to realize is that you can either be on that stage full time, or you can be on the audience full time, or you can do none of it. You share what you want to share, but at the moment that you start comparing your life to someone else's, then you start feeling inadequate. You start feeling, well, I don't have the things that I should have. And instead of thinking, well, how am I going to work to get it? You're going to start feeling, well, I'm going to hate this other person because they have it. So I strongly advise you, I implore you, focus on what you're doing. Have a strange kind of focus where what you're doing is the most important thing that there is, because in real life, what you're doing is really the most important thing there is. When someone comes to you and tells you, did you hear what such and such is doing? Did you hear what this person is doing? What they're really saying is, my life is so boring that I don't have anything in my own life to tell you. Now, I have a soft spot in my heart for gossip, but I don't have big tolerance for people just tearing down each other just because they're not doing enough with their lives. So that's something that you might want to get into. Not only the spirit of surviving, but the spirit of living. And notice the things that people share the most on social media is not really their lifestyle, but a perception of what they want you to think their life is. So never assume that someone else's life is really what they're going through, because when you run into that person in real life, in person, you will realize that they're having problems just like you. They just don't have any place to share it. They don't want you to see that side of them. Another thing that you won't see a lot of in social media is pictures of families, because it's not considered cool anymore to rock out with your family, unless you're in the Eastern Hemisphere, where they still have a strong reverence for the familial thing. So your ego will enslave you, because that thing that we used to have before, where we really needed each other to get by every day, is really not there. And we're going through a transition period that you really don't need as many people. And it has become dangerous in certain parts of the world to even present yourself or to even open up to someone. You have to realize that right now, during this transition period, a lot of people are going to feel left out. They're going to feel confused. They're not going to know what to do with themselves, to their lives. If you have a feeling of independence, but you still, and it's separating you from a whole population of people, or a whole gender, or a whole feeling of being, feeling like a complete human being, then you might want to realize, hey, I need to change my life, and only I can do it. One of the things that I had to learn to change a couple of years ago was approaching people, because naturally I would not approach people. But I realized that I would have a better day once I didn't leave it up to someone else to say good morning, to wait for someone else to be the one speaking first. Once you take control of your life, you realize that your life is your own. Once you take control of your life, you realize I don't need someone else to try to maneuver or manipulate the way that I feel, because I can get joy over here, but I also can get joy over there. And if your name is Joy, I apologize. You also realize I can go for the things I need over there, but I also can go get the things I need over here. And I say that because many times, especially for you young people who are trying to deal with this world of dating in the age of technology, you might feel a feeling that you have to go out every weekend, spend your money so people like you, and it's usually the same old things: getting a drink, going out to a club, buying some alcohol so it can make it easier for you to get with someone. But what I'm saying is, many of these things are just things. Many of the feelings that you are getting from not feeling fulfilled by the time Monday comes or Sunday morning comes is because you realize, I really didn't need those things. I just wanted to feel like I was part of something. Oh, I really didn't want to be with this guy, but I didn't want to feel left out. I felt everyone was eating. I felt everyone else was getting a piece of bread, but I was going to be the one without any. I was going to be the one with the empty plate. And I really, feel empathetic to those situations, because I know that when your ego is still very strong, you start to realize, well, I just wanted to not have an empty bed. I just didn't want my life to pass me by without getting to know anyone. But in retrospect, you're still not getting to know anyone. You start to realize that you're having the same conversations with different people, but you're really not getting fulfilled. And a lot of these things have to do with you holding on to the past. Now, I'm talking about not only your partner's past and your experiences that you had with them, but your own personal past. When historians look at history, they usually look at the past in relation to the future. When it comes to your dating life, you have to look to your past in relation to your future. When it comes to the things that you want in life that you think you can achieve, you have to look at your past in relation to your future. If you didn't receive the parenting you needed, then you might pass that down to your children. If you didn't get the kind of love you needed as a child, you might feel insecure as an adult. If you didn't get the people talking to you that you needed to talk to you in a reasonable time frame, you might realize as an adult, I feel incomplete. And it's up to you to realize this is what I'm going through. This is exactly what I'm feeling, but I may not be able to verbalize it. But I see the same pattern in my children. The things that you didn't get, it's going to be impossible for you to give. But that's why you have to surround yourself with people that are of a mindset of achieving and not just staying in the same place. You don't need a perfect time for you to make a change in your life just because it's the weekend or because it's New Year or because it's your birthday. Why do you think many people get depressed around their birthday? Because it's a day that you're given permission to feel good about yourself. The same thing with Black History Month. Oh, this is the only time that you get to remember what your history is. And the answer to that is no. You can celebrate whoever you are at any given day, at every given minute. You can go to the gym. One of the people that I know on Instagram, she put up a post. Her name is Yannick, and she said in her post, working out is not just about going to the gym every day and eating right, but it's also what comes out of your mouth and what goes into your mind. And if those things are not in correlation, in combination, working in tandem, you're going to feel like one side is carrying more than the other. It's like if I remember when I was younger and I would try to help my grandmother out and coming home from the store with the groceries to help her out, I would grab one handle from the grocery bag and she would grab the other. Now, because she was taller than, she automatically was going to be carrying most of the weight. And that's what's happening in a lot of your life. That's what's happening into a lot of your relationships. You start to realize that one of you is usually carrying more of the weight than the other. It could be just because you think that that person's going to leave if you're not in their presence the whole time. And then and by doing that, in a way, you start shortchanging yourself. Because if someone really wants to be around you, you don't have to force it. Now, with that comes if you have a trust with someone, you don't have to check up on them the whole day. You don't have to check with them every half hour. If someone wants to be with you, they will be with you. You won't realize that until you meet someone who really wants to be with you. You might not want to be with them, but you always know when someone wants to be with you. And you really start to realize, well, this person wants to be with me. And every other relationship that you might have had up until then, you start to realize, why was it so hard? And it's because this person really wants to be with you. And the way that relationships work is that sometimes you're that person that wants to put all the effort into being with that person. And then other times it's the other person who's putting all the effort to try to be with you. But for whatever reason, it's not happening. But when it works, it works. You don't have to force it. You want to be around each other at a similar pace as the other person. It's never going to be equal. Don't lie to yourself. And don't feel bad because it's never going to feel equal. Relationships, when they talk about relationships, they always talk about the ebbs and flows. What they don't explain to you is that it's never going to be the case that, well, I'm always going to have that perfect moment of what people consider infatuation or love or lust. that I had in the beginning of a relationship. But after a certain amount of time, usually between 3 and 4 months, depending on who you are, you're going to realize, hey, I feel comfortable with this person. And it's usually around that time when you start feeling comfortable with this person, or what people say, people grow on you, is that when one of you two wants to leave the relationship. And what I'm telling you is that's fine. Whatever time you get to spend with someone, that's the time that you had with that person. How many times haven't you said it when you're with this person? I wish I could make this moment last. I wish I could have made that moment last. Oh, remember that time that we went to this place and I didn't make that moment last? Guess what? The new person you meet, that moment that you're going to want to make last is doing whatever you're doing. It can be at the movies, it can be jogging, it can be kickboxing, it can be doing jujitsu, it can be whatever you're doing. But never take for granted that the time that you want to make last, you're not going to realize it at the moment. That's why you always want to take into account that that moment could be right now. That moment that, well, I wish that you could say to yourself, I wish that this person knew that how I felt about them. But what you don't realize is that that moment that that person needed to know how you feel about them, it's not 5 years from now, 5 months from now, it's when you feel it. Now, you might think, well, this is, I'm waiting for the perfect time, or I'm waiting for that person to say it first. But that's our ego getting into it. And understandably, sometimes you don't know what you're feeling at the moment, but you know it's a feeling that you can understand, and sometimes it's just that thing that you need to say. I'm feeling something, I'm not sure how to explain it, but I'm feeling very close to you at the moment. You don't have to say it back, because you don't want someone just to repeat something back to you just because you expect it in return, or they think you expect it in return, because else it's not sincere. If someone doesn't like me, I want them to tell me, you know what, I don't want to be around you. I don't like you for whatever reason. Maybe you have too much beard, maybe your voice is too low, or maybe you spend too much time by yourself. But whatever it is, it's better that someone saves you your time than tries to pretend they really like you for the person that you are. So with that being said, we're living in a time where you can change whatever you want about yourself that you feel is not working. I'm not saying something that someone else told you that they don't like about you. You might want to consider it, but you don't have to live by what someone else thinks would be better in your life. If you think, well, I need to restructure my life so that I am more rested, I'm not up at a time where I'm not really that productive, you might want to consider going to sleep earlier. Even if it's 9 o'clock at night, even if it's 9:30 at night. If you've gotten into a rut where you're just looking at what everyone else is doing and not focusing to what you're doing, whether it's learning a language, learning a dance, learning how to socialize, learning how to hold a phone conversation, learning what to say to people in public who don't owe us anything and not just so they can be utility to us. These are all things that you might want to learn. The worst thing that you might encounter is that when you find someone you really want to be around, you realize I have nothing to offer someone of value. You might find it that when I am around a person, I am so full of the past, I'm trying to hold on to the past so much that it's making it impossible for me to get to know new people and new situations. You're going to realize that when you are at your lowest point, other people who are at their lowest point will gravitate to you naturally. It's like, you leave the door open, say, come in, and you're trying to catch a lot of bees and everything, you really, going by that expression, you catch a lot more bees with honey than you do with something that's sour, but you get a lot of ants coming into your place trying to get at something that it just saw was there, they smelled the sweetness, and they're going to try to eat it and take it back to where they can use it. I'm not saying to catch bees, I'm not saying to catch ants, but I'm just saying realize how your behavior will encourage behavior from other people. If you say, for example, you go on a dating site, what do you see that many profiles have said? If you're a woman, many times they'll put something like, I'm not looking for one night stands, I'm not looking for hookups, I'm not looking for friends with benefits, I'm not looking for anything that's temporary. Well, by you saying that, you're already letting everyone know what you have allowed to pass and what you have allowed to happen. The power in your words doesn't always work in your favor, because if you are, again, it's going back to that analogy of you're hiring someone for a position, but they're telling you how negative and how bad the person who had that position before was, then you already know that you don't have to give your all to this company. You already know that this company is a company that decided to employ someone who they just are talking so negatively about. Your own words and whatever you feel comfortable doing will enslave you. So be careful what you put out there, because you will inherit the environment that you create. Now, this could be a... Just going to take a break for a second. Hold on. I need to get some water. This segment is brought to you by Fiji Water. It's not exactly what's in here. It's filtered water from my filter, not exactly Fiji Water, but until they pay me for promotion and branding, I'll keep saying it's another kind of water. Oh, I love cold water. I want to talk a little bit about surviving your life and just the concept of talking. People need to talk, and not only do people need to talk, but people need to talk with a purpose. I believe when you talk with a purpose, you will have better educated children, and you will have better relationships with adults. Many conversations are not had. Many conversations are too worried about what someone else will feel once a statement is made, or once someone finishes talking, for good reason, because we're living in a time where people are comfortable being someone else for the good of some society. I'm not sure what society that is, but I think when you take responsibility for your life, you just don't throw away words, and you take time to think, you take time to analyze, and you take time to act with a purpose that to you is important. If you are around people that do not appreciate good conversation, this may add to your sadness. This may add to your misery. If you are around people that do not understand that what you bring, then you have to be around people that do. Now, it sounds simple, but it seems to be the hardest thing for people to do, especially if you don't have experience um, dealing with certain situations, or sometimes it's harder for people to deal with social situations than actually just do what everyone else is doing. Because when you are not in agreement with what a lot of people are doing, especially now in society, the worst thing that for people that can't be alone, the worst thing that could happen to them, or the worst thing that they fear is being alone. But what happens many times is that they'll find themselves alone even when they're trying to be what someone else expects them to be. And if you're going to be by yourself, regardless of whatever situation it is, then do right by you. By all means, do right by you. Sometimes your parents can't tell you the things that you need to hear. Sometimes the person that you're with can't tell you the things that you need to hear. Sometimes the things that you need to hear hasn't come around to society to take in yet. So it can't be delivered back to you. If you cannot be yourself when you are around other people, I'm one to believe there's always people that you can be around that will just accept you for who you are. Now, they might not look like you. They might not talk like you. They might not have been raised by you. They might belong to another culture. They might have another language. But when you're around them, you feel their energy. But you have to take the initiative. You have to take the risk of failing. You have to take the risk of falling in your face. Life is more exciting when you take risks. Life is more exciting once you do things that you haven't done before. Many times you will be confronted with situations that you have no experience with. So what you do is you go back to what you're comfortable with. How many times haven't you been on vacation and you're there for more than 4 days and you just can't wait to get home to the things that you're familiar with? How many times have you been out in a social gathering and you feel you have to be constantly entertained in whatever you're doing? So what you do is, instead of trying to spark up a conversation with someone, you either pull out your phone, you try to look, or you try to text someone who you weren't even ready to text, but you just don't want to feel awkward in a situation that you just made awkward by having the anxiety fill up inside of you. How many times have you been in a different setting and not know who to approach, and you realize that other people don't know how to approach you? So you're both looking for the best way to try to connect, but you realize that you're so removed from a society that's trying to connect that you just fall into your own patterns and habits of just sticking to yourself. What I'm saying is, if you are a human being, if you are committed to life, you have to make a constant effort to being a part of that thing you call life. That means taking risks with people. That means being the first one to talk, being not scared to fail when it comes to addressing, when engaging someone else in conversation. I don't think there's been a day this year yet that I've been out in public where I start talking to one person, and before you know it, there are 4 and 5 people that join the conversation. When you have a spirit of inclusion, you will never feel alone. Once you have a feeling of inclusion, you won't feel like you have to depend on external entities to make up for the things that you already have internally. But for that to happen, you have to get rid of who you thought you were because it was a lie. You have to get rid of the person who others told you were because that's a lie. You have to get rid of the things that you said you could never do because that was a lie. And in a reinventing of yourself, you will start to realize you will become stronger in combining what you have to give with what someone else just gave you. The best way to learn how to deal with situations is to put yourself in situations or to just talk about someone else's situations that's in front of you. But this doesn't happen with small talk. Many times this doesn't happen, most of the times it doesn't happen with small talk. You have to be able to dare someone else to open up. And in that enrichment, you will feel that no amount of money can make up for the type of person that you need to be. That no amount of money can make up for the person that you didn't know you were, but have become. So richness, it can be measured financially, monetarily, economically, but it can also be measured in the amount of experiences that you've had in the course of a week, in the course of an hour, in the course of a minute, in the course of a minute. Sometimes the person who you need an apology from is not someone outside of yourself. Sometimes you need an apology from yourself to yourself for letting yourself down, for not giving yourself a chance, for not letting yourself become the person that you needed to be, for not trusting yourself, for not giving back to yourself, for not being good to yourself time and time and time again. Sometimes a person that needs to forgive themselves more than anyone else is yourself. And once you're able to apologize to yourself, once you're able to forgive yourself, you can make space for other people. You can make yourself enough space to give yourself enough time to take in the things that in life that you've been ignoring. Eye contact, pattern of speech, tone of voice, posture, the energy that you give someone just by appreciating the person that they are without even knowing them. The love that you approach somebody else with without knowing who they were because you didn't care. You just saw them as someone who needed to be respected. Sometimes you will find just by talking to someone else, they will feel better. But not only that, you start to feel better. And you grew up in different places and you grew up in different ways. Sometimes the things that you feel that your parents didn't give you, you already have gotten back 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times by other people from someone else. For free. Buy someone else lunch just because you can, not because your church says to do so. See how good that feels. You don't have to tell anyone else about it. Talk to someone who you see is going through something. Even if they can't do anything for you, see how good that makes you feel. and then you don't have to tell anyone else about it. Just listen to someone without expecting them to do anything for you. See how good that feels. And if it doesn't, it's part of life. To survive your life, you have to celebrate things that you do that are sometimes not common. The people that we many times give our attention to and celebrate are people that have no impact or bearing on our lives. Many of those people are what we call celebrities. What are we celebrating? If this person has a lot of money, great. That's what someone was willing to pay them. If someone has a lot of fancy things, great. Those are the things that they were able to afford with the money that they were able to achieve and attain. But the question that you have to ask yourself before your vocabulary and conversation is full of what the celebrities are doing, especially if you're comparing your life to theirs and it's affecting the way it makes you feel, what does their life have to do with mine? Whether they get married, whether they get divorced, whether they said something that was offensive, whether they're driving a new car, whether they went on vacation, whether they're wearing a new dress, whether they're wearing a new gown. How does what they do impact my life? The answer is it doesn't. I want you to try to do that with the news too, because a lot of the problems that you take to bed with you are things that have nothing to do with you. A lot of the problems you take to bed with you are things that have nothing to do with you. And the question that no one asks himself many times is, what does that have to do with me? And you start taking on a lot of causes, a lot of problems that many times you can't even begin to understand and you can't even begin to solve. But you take it to bed with you, and it poisons your relationships, it poisons your outlook in the world, makes you cynical, and it poisons the clarity that you were born with. The same way substances will. So the things you consume are not only from drugs and alcohol, but many times in the way of what you let into your ears, what you let into your mind, will then become how you go out in public with. Sometimes the face that you wear and approach people with, you can already tell what they're going through and what they let into their heads. You see it in children as well as adults. And that's why I stress to talk with a purpose. Because many times the things that you will hear from someone's mouth has no bearing in your life, but it's just something to do the most unforgivable sin, which is killing time. The only thing that you can't get back. So careful when you compare yourself to celebrities. Careful when your conversation just revolves around celebrities. Careful when you set an example to children that perhaps is not a good one. Believe it or not, even if you think you're alone, there's always someone looking at what we're doing. And it's usually young people. And many of the ways that we teach them on how to survive are ways that they pick up on. They're always looking. They're always trying to figure out what's best for them by what they see you doing. Because they know that in a few years they're going to have to be faced with the same kind of questions, the same kind of answers to try to survive their life, because many young people are trying to make the best out of their life. What happens to many people when they're going through things, they realize they really feel alone. Like the picture that's on the screen, that will be on the screen. I don't know if you can see it. And that feeling of loneliness will become everything about their life, everything that they think about, everything that they, it'll become part of their speech, and it'll become part of their actions. And the worst thing that many people will feel is being with someone, but feeling alone at the same time. You could be having a conversation with someone, and you could tell they don't want to be having that conversation because it's too real, it's too serious. And in that moment, that person or yourself will feel very alone. And so you retreat into things that you do to deal with those things. Usually it doesn't always have to be destructive, but it can just be, hey, let me just put my feelings aside. And you just say, this is part of being an adult. Let me put the things that that I know I can deal with aside. That's something that I hear a lot of people say, I know I can deal with it. I know I can deal with it. Without knowing that it's really dealing with you. You're not dealing with it. It's really dealing with you. And the way it's dealing with you is through avoidance. Is for me, it becomes stress. When I think about things for too long, it becomes stress. That's why when I have something pressing, I like to handle it like this. I don't like for things to linger for a long time. I'm not the masochist in that way. I like for things to be clear, and even if they're not clear, my end goal is always going to be peace. And if peace can't be achieved, I'm going to try to move on from whatever situation that is. Sometimes peace can't be achieved, and rather you add to some sort of destruction, just remove yourself from that situation. If your ego doesn't let you remove yourself from a certain situation, then you have to spend more time figuring out why. And I say this to say, because many parents, many times they stay with their partner because they say it's for the sake of the children. When they know it's not for the sake of the children, they know it's, hey, I don't think I can do it on my own, or I don't want to see this person that I am with someone else. And that's a dangerous thought, not only because you're selling yourself short, but you're selling your child short, and you're not giving your partner an opportunity to see what they can be without you. Because it can be hard sometimes to feel, well, this person's happier without me. But again, if you feel happy owning someone, or you feel happy possessing someone, it's not really happiness. It's a feeling of control or a feeling of manipulation, but it's not really happiness. But if you do find happiness in those things, you have to ask yourself, why is that? And know that it's temporary. And know that it's enslaving not only the other person, but mostly yourself. So think about it when you're putting things online that really are detrimental to yourself. Because again, if you wouldn't give yourself the position according to how your posts look like, especially if it comes to talking about someone else, then why do you think someone else would give you that chance of starting anew if you're dogging the last person you're out with? And not only that, but you're setting a bad example for the people that may want to be with you, or the people that are looking at you. The other thing that I want to mention is that you have to allow yourself to feel peace. You have to when I say peace, I don't mean that nothing bad's going to happen. But anything that happens, you have to approach it with a sense of, I know things can get better, but I know I have to do things different. Now, sometimes you're ready, you're doing things different, and you don't see things getting better, but you have to understand that you have to give yourself a chance. When you feel you are not part of the world, and I say that in the respect of, well, I feel like everything in the world is bad, is usually because you are being distracted from the very things that you need to survive in the world or in life. And that brings us to the title of this broadcast. If you have any problem surviving your life, it's usually because you are playing too many roles, and all those roles are not leading back to a deeper understanding of who you are, and it's leading people to believe that you are one way when you're really not. Think about the people who have taken their lives, whether it's been a Kurt Cobain, whether it's Robin Williams, who is, these are, and with the exception of Kurt Cobain, look at Robin Williams. This is a guy who, if you see him, he's always trying to make other people laugh. He's always doing what he can to make other people laugh. But when it came down to it, this was not someone who was able to survive life. He didn't reach his expiration date because of natural causes. He reached his expiration date because he wasn't able to deal with his own mind. It's like something that's inside of you is fighting you at the same time. Something that lives inside of you, it takes a life of its own, and it starts challenging you to for your well-being. You're trying to turn this way, and it's trying to turn him the other way. And it's a real thing, and that's something that people find different ways to deal with it. They go running, they go biking, they go to the gym, they watch movies. Some people make fun of other people. Some people, they self-medicate. Some people, they cut themselves. Some people do a lot of these different things. And other people just, they just try to pick up and be with everyone sexually that's moving. And sometimes people just decide it's too much, and they decide to end it all, and they take that control. And with a feeling of, well, maybe now I will be noticed. Maybe now I will be seen. Maybe now I will be heard. But the things that you would wish to happen usually don't happen when you decide to take your own life. Nothing really changes except that you'll have perhaps a quick mention of your life, or the things that you've done. But life just continues, just has a way of pushing forward. Michael Jackson, when he died, everybody thought, oh, I could never imagine a day when Michael Jackson would be dead, but life just goes on. This other singer from the Cranberries, people thought, well, I can never imagine a time where she won't be in the world because she met so much of many people during the 90s. And, but life just goes on. And these are all people who people have said, well, they have a lot of money. How could they be sad? How could they be sad? Well, they have a lot of money. How could they be sad? But again, sometimes life gets in the way of life, and the hardest part about life is living it. So people try to figure out ways to make their life easier, and sometimes the more people talk about it, the sadder they get, and they're trying to avoid that spot. But again, people around the holidays, a lot of people get happy, but a lot of people get depressed. And many people get depressed because they're hanging around people who are really not looking out for them, or they're making believe there's someone else. Some people go back to their family, and realize the only reason they've accepted me all these years is because I was making believe I was someone else. Or you go to Valentine's Day and you realize, well, I realize I'm in a place where they're trying to commercially make it feel like everyone is happy, and I bought into that, and I don't know where my happiness is going to come from. And so I'll drink, and I'll try to self-destruct. even if I know that I'm doing it at the time and it's wrong. Many times people realize, hey, it's my birthday, and uh, the group of friends, a lot of older people that I've spoken to, everyone who I used to know um, from my era is dying one at a time. And I can't go to the places where I used to go anymore because there's no one that I know there. Or I feel that society is trying to push me out a little further out of the way every year at a time. And sometimes you're that person that everybody talks to, that they share their problem with, and they know you as a person that is sharing that can listen to all their problems because you're a good listener. But when you have to go someplace, you don't know where to go. But all these things make it so everyone has a reason as to why they have to survive their life. Many people, they'll see that, hey, I'm going to be that person that is never sad. I'm going to be that person that's always hanging out with people. I'm going to take a whole bunch of selfies. I'm going to be around a whole bunch of people, and that, and many times people won't realize it's that person that is trying to be the center of attention that is the most depressed, because it's an everyday battle, it's an everyday struggle for them to keep that spot in the center. It's an everyday struggle to keep everyone happy. Sometimes people realize, hey, people only like me when I'm drunk, or people only like me when I'm high. And what people don't realize, like in the case of Sid Vicious, that he couldn't stop. When it came time for him to stop, he couldn't stop. I think he was 21 years old when he died. But once you start something, you might realize, hey, I like myself better this way, because I forget myself a little bit. I forget myself for a little bit, and then I realize, hey, I can't deal with this person when I'm not on something. So being sober around holidays where people are supposed to be social becomes very hard for many people. And so what many people will do, and if you, for example, if you feel that a lot of these holidays are going to bother you, like Christmas, which is hard on a lot of people, avoid places where you know there's going to be a big familial atmosphere, whether it's the shopping malls or the stores where everybody's just going crazy and buying stuff, or people who are not going to appreciate it. And these are thoughts that you get. And like, all right, well, I'm going to, I know the holiday season is coming, so I'm going to retreat back to this person that I was when I was growing up, because this is how they're going to expect me to be, without realizing I'm not that person anymore. And that's when you realize if your life is yours or your life is not. To see how independent you are of those thoughts, but not only those thoughts, but what can I do to be okay with myself? Because many people don't want to rock the boat. For example, you're a white person, your parents told you don't bring an Asian person home. And you're only doing it not because you dislike Asian people, but because you want your family to think of you in a certain way. You want to keep the quote-unquote respect or obedience that is known from you by a family member. You might even feel like you're being cut out of a family because of it. So, people don't want to feel ignored. People like the idea of family, but many times people don't like the idea of following the rules that you need to be part of the family, because they know that, well, this is something that to be part of this family, these are the things I have to follow. And you know that if you heard family members say certain things that will, if you like an Asian person, they're not going to approve of it. If you are into something that they disapprove of, and you are, then it's going to make for abusive conversation, or a conversation that you'd rather not be having. So the closer you are to your independence, the closer you will be to being able to survive your life. And by independence, I just don't mean, just having a car, having a house, and having a job. Those are basic things. Those are things that, you know, everyone should have, or at least an apartment or a means of transportation that you pay for with your own money. But I'm talking about how much do I let other people influence my life? Because if you go to the doctor, he won't tell you, she won't tell you, these are the things that you have to do. These are stressors you have to take care of. They'll tell you about your diet sometimes, but they won't tell you you have to take control over your own life. And because doctors study medicine, they don't study social studies. They don't study social situations. They study how to put a patch on the problem short term, but eventually that becomes a long-term problem. They'll teach you how to turn off your emotions, not deal with them. They'll teach you how to sedate your emotions, but not deal with them. What I'm talking to you about now is you have to learn to live with yourself, because you're going to be with yourself for a long time. With that being said, a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on their looks. Now, looks are temporary. For better, for worse, looks are temporary. Some people feel enslaved by their looks. Okay, don't worry, it's going to be temporary. But if you learn how to live with yourself, if from a young age you learn to value other things besides your look, you might have an easier time when you get older. If you learn to value people instead of possessions, you might have an easier time when you get older. I mean, being older is not the worst thing to happen to someone, but the things that you learn to value will then make you the person that you are later on in life. So if you're a kid and you are in high school and the thing that you value is popularity and celebrity, guess what? The moment that you feel something has been a little bit embarrassing to you, the moment you feel something is a little bit embarrassing to you and you can't live with it, that's the moment you might decide to end your life. If you learn to value, well, what I have on is going to be the most important thing to me, the moment you can't afford it, the moment you lose your job, the moment someone doesn't give you that compliment you feel that you should deserve because you got it 2 years ago when that was popular, or the moment that you got that you were at the top of the food chain, so to speak, you're not getting that same kind of attention, you're going to feel like you're missing something. You're going to feel like you're no longer important. And importance is something that you give yourself. It's something that someone else can't give you. You get that by being productive. You get that by being an asset and not a liability. And that's something that it's hard for young people to understand, because sometimes the people that they're looking up to, many times they're not aware of how to train the young people as to the things that they should value. If I have the latest sneakers, a teenage boy might value that. Now, the moment a new version of those sneakers comes out, he's no longer going to value that. So I can have a $200 pair of sneakers and live in an area where everything is crumbling around me, but as long as I have the most popular sneakers, that's all that's going to be considered, whether I am popular or not. You can live in an area where you have the fanciest car, the best car, and then realize, hey, I'm living in an area where if I don't keep this bolted on the lock and key, or just hide it, or just drive it at a certain time, I'm going to, so the things that you value are going to be very important as you grow older. So if right now you're very young and you find it hard to survive your life, it doesn't get better if you don't tackle it right now. I can be on the phone with someone who is portraying their life to be very successful for 3 hours, and they tell me everything that's wrong with their situation, because sometimes I help people who need the help. And what I learned many times from those situations is that everything is not how they painted it. And by rule of thumb, you might want to understand that everything that you see online is not real. It's like everything you see on TV is not real. is something that they want you to pay for to sell, something that they want you to see to be able to sell advertisement. I'm going to say that again. Everything that you see on TV is a lie. If something was that valuable, they wouldn't need to sell it. They wouldn't need to push it so hard on you. You might want to think about that when it comes to your self-worth. If your self-worth, you need to sell it on someone so bad, it's probably something that someone doesn't need. And so when you're doing a self-inventory of the things that you can offer someone, of the things that you can offer yourself, and maybe then the things that you can offer society, think about the things that are of value and not something that can depreciate with time. If I have a brand new shirt, a lot of people may love it because it has a brand name on it. Or I can have a shirt that has a beat on it, and I might like it because to me it might have some kind of sentimental value, or just because I like wearing the shirt. I can pay about $7 for a shirt, and someone else may pay $500 for theirs. But if you are constantly seeking approval from someone else, you are missing the value of being an individual. If you are constantly seeking approval from other people, then you are missing the importance of independence. So with that being said, the more people that have control over your life, the less control you have over the way you feel. The more power you give someone to the way that they're making you act, is they know that they could go back to whatever manipulation that just happened and then just keep pushing that same button again. And it can be with family, it can be with lovers, it can be with whatever situation. Even if you're dealing with children, even if you're dealing with adults, whatever, it's a human thing. Whatever you were able to get away with, you're going to try to do it again. If you already said, hey, I'm going to accept this kind of behavior, then why would you have to change? If this person already said, well, I'm going to put up with this, why would someone else have to try to change? So you have to always take inventory. Okay, this is the way I have lived my life up until now. But asking yourself, is it still working? This is the way that I have been doing things until now, but is it still bringing joy to my life, or is it still working? This is the way I have been doing things while I was growing up, because I was part of this religion. I identified clearly with only this culture. Is it still working? I only hung around these kinds of people in this kind of neighborhood with these types of people that can only be my friends. But is it still working as I'm growing older, as I'm growing, as I'm growing, as I'm growing? And if you're not growing, then what am I doing? If you're not growing, what are you doing? Even leaves fall off of trees in the winter. They're not growing. If someone can grow off of you, they will grow off of you. If you are helping someone without them having to lift their side of the weight, they will do it. Trust it. So you have to understand that for you to survive your life, it's not up to you to be the nicest person. For you to survive your life, you have to realize it's not up to you to be the kindest person. It's not up to you to be the meanest person. It's not up to you to be the most vulgar person. Your peace comes from within. Anything that someone makes you buy from the outside that they say that you need, is them trying to separate you from your money, just like a commercial. They tell you you need this to separate you from your money. If someone is trying to say, well, you're an incomplete person. When was the last time you saw a commercial that said, don't buy anything? When was the last time you saw a commercial that said, everything you need, you already have it in you? Because if they said that, they know you wouldn't need it or feel like you need it. If they said that, you wouldn't buy their product. But then again, there's some companies that never advertise because it already has a perceived value. They know even if they don't advertise, people are still going to buy it. Now, There are going to be certain differences, but the things that you already have it in you. But if you tell someone you already have the things that you need inside of you, why would you pay for it? Tomorrow it's going to be the Super Bowl, and people have spent millions of dollars on commercials trying to convince you that you are missing something, so you'll be separated from your money. So if you're going to survive life, you have to realize, if I'm living in a capitalist system, which works for a lot of people, you have to understand the main goal of a capitalist society, or an understanding that you should have, an education that you should have, is that you are going to be tempted to be separated from your money. Right now, a lot of you are on Facebook, and while you're on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you are, you're going to get advertisement for something that you clicked weeks ago, for something that you clicked last year, 2017. But it's all in an effort to separate you from your money. And the more you think you need something, the more you're going to try to get it. A 40-inch screen TV was good, but now they made a 60-inch screen TV, 4K. Now you need it. Okay? You had this water by Fiji, but now it's coming from an artisanal well, but now you're going to have some other water that is considered smart water with vitamins in it. If you think about it, how can you really improve on water? Why? With what? Artificial colors, artificial flavors, infusing it with some vitamins that you probably pee out by the time the commercial is up. But anytime that someone is telling you you need something so bad, they usually try to distract you and trying to tell you, we want to get something from you that you don't already have. So tomorrow you're going to see during the Super Bowl, again, all these commercials that were spent, people spent millions of dollars just on 30 seconds of advertising to try to separate you from your money, to try to get you to think on a certain level. And that's what programming is. So if you live in this society, in this capitalist society, part of the tricks of society is not tell you the rules of that capitalist society. And the way you change somebody's mindset is by investing in their product. That's why if you believe in yourself, you're going to invest in your product. Whatever way you have, whatever way of philosophy that you have of living your life. Because companies are spending millions of dollars in trying to get you to drink. Companies are going to spend millions of dollars trying to get you to eat at this fast food place. Companies are trying to spend millions of dollars trying to get you to go to some exotic vacation to their country, using their air travel, buying their luggage. Companies are going to spend millions of dollars trying to get you to take their medicines and get hooked on it, so then you can just be part of this system again. And one of the things that you will never see is a commercial saying, hey, eat an apple because it's good for you. Hey, eat this carrot because it's good for you. Instead, you'll say, well, eat this, drink this medicine, take these pills because it'll improve your eyesight. And we have all these natural things around us that can do the same thing and even better because it doesn't have the same side effects as the long list listed after any medicine in a commercial. So if someone is trying to sell you something so hard, it's because probably trying to change the way you think, because this wasn't something that you were thinking about purchasing in the first place. And that works for relationships, and that works for religions, and that works for anything that you automatically think, all right, well, I don't know about this. I don't know. Why do I need a new car if my salary is $5,000 a year and this car costs $100,000 a year? Do you need it? No, you don't. You can get a used car that runs perfectly, but this advertisement is telling you this is something you need because you need status. This company is telling you you need this car because it'll give you a higher royalty rating, which they do in a lot of communities. You need this new Air Jordan because look, the guy in the commercial, he flew over 500 people, he dunked the ball, and all these women came after him. All things that are going to bring you problem if you focus on every one of them like that. Whether it's too much of anything in access, it's going to bring you just more problems. So whether you take more drugs, whether you just spend all your money on everything that your car needs, or you spend your money on 50 women that are going to be excited because you have a car, it's all going to cause you problems. When was the last time that you saw a commercial that said, stay home on Friday? Read a book. When was the last time you saw all things that can help you better your life? So if you show me the commercial that can better your life, I could then say everything you see on TV is not a lie. But surviving your life you have to take inventory of what's happening, because it's a lot of money goes into helping you look to the right, to the left, forward, down, but not what's in front of you. What you can have, the things that you should be doing. Do this, don't do that. Believe this way. Believe like me politically, because I want you to vote this way. Millions of dollars are put into these things. So if you're thinking, well, I'm just watching a TV program, then think about, well, why is it that when they go to a commercial break, the commercials automatically get louder? Because they know that as soon as a commercial starts, you're going to leave the room and do what you need to do that you couldn't get done while the game is on or while your show is on, but they still want you to hear it. They want to amplify it. When I say they, I'm talking about the people who study media, the people who study advertising, the people who make these commercials, and the people who pay for these commercials. They know that once you leave the room, you can't hear the commercials well, so they amplify it to a level that you hear it, whether you're in the bathroom, whether you're into another room, to buy these things that you don't need. There's no such thing as an innocent commercial. Whether it's Coke or Pepsi, you're going to know that you're being pulled in every different direction, and they're basically something that you don't need. There's no doctor that's going to tell you you need Coke, you need more Pepsi. All right, so they know that people now are more conscious about the way that they eat. So what do you see? You'll see the same companies that are bringing you the poison are the same companies that are bringing you the healthy beverage. But how can you trust a vegetarian restaurant that cooks on the same grill that they use to cook bacon and pork and ham, fried meats, and all kinds of these things? The same company that's bringing you the poison is bringing you the solution to it. So think about that when it comes to everything that pops in front of you in your life. Whether it's people, whether it's objects, whether it's opportunities that weren't there. If something's coming to you too easy, you have to wonder, why is it coming to me this easy? If something is coming to me so hard, you usually wonder, what do I have to do to get it? But if something just pops in your lap and appears to be too good to be true, it usually is. You open your email, and what will it say? You want a trip to Jamaica. Oh, this person in this country just donated, and you just inherited $1 million from someone who didn't even know you existed. So why would you think that something is going to come to you that easy? Now that's a very amateurish way to explain it, or people to try to separate you from your money. But that's exactly why the advertisement, the professionals, they spend millions of dollars to get you to think a certain way. The NRA, they always send you a magazine with a gun on it, and they appeal to people. They put billions of dollars in recruitment of funds just because they want people to vote a certain way. So when you live in a place that capitalism is on the forefront and they have media capitals in every major city, you have to understand, whatever they want the population to think, they're going to fund it by putting a lot of money into it. Just like if you have an idea, if your idea is starting a new beverage, you're going to have that beverage advertised in most way that you can. Because when people get used to seeing something, you don't even have to say, hey, this is what is here. This is what we advertise. You just see the name of the product, You see Apple, you see Lamborghini, you'll see, to an extent, Sony. You know that there's a quality attached to that product. And for that to happen, you constantly have to be seeing things in odd places. I went to a marketing school when I was a teenager, and this is something that they explained to you from the beginning. They also explained logistics, which at the time was boring, but now as a grown-up, I'm able to use these things in my everyday life. And something like math also was something that to solve, what better thing than math to help you solve problems, especially when it comes to logic. If P, then Q, then, they'll have you solving any problem logically. That's what they call it, logic. You take one premise, you take the other premise, and they'll tell you what can be and what can be. So if I'm being advertised something that I need, but they're putting so much money into it, but it's usually something wrong with it. So if I'm advertised this allergy medicine, but at the end they're running through a list of side effects, there's obviously something wrong with it. For example, they're putting so much money into cellular devices. Do you know that when CD players first came out, you had to sit at a certain distance from the CD, and they said when you open it, there was a ticket inside the CD player that would say a certain exposure to this radiation coming out of the CD from the CD player can be dangerous. Now, as time went on, they stopped putting that. They used to put it in computers. In the old computers, with the desktop or workstations, they used to put it right on there. They also used to say you had to sit 10 feet away from a television when we were growing up. But right now, they don't have that. What I'm saying is sometimes a lot of money is put into technology, and other times is put into problems that technology causes. It's keeping you from the information that technology causes from you finding out that information. When cell phones came out, they always used to talk about the radiations and the antennas. Now, I don't know if the problem disappeared, but I know that those signs disappeared. And when something is very popular, the last thing you're going to find out is what side effects really are part of it, even if some people already know it. Think about cigarettes. When cigarettes first came out, there were actual companies saying it was good for you. And the way that they did it, they tried to influence young people. When they went to the movies, they tried to get a lot of their celebrities. That's why celebrities are just vehicles for society to do the things that they're doing so they can spend more money. They would have major celebrities smoking, whether it was James Dean, whether it was Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. All these guys used to smoke cigarettes, Humphrey Bogart, and they used to say, this was good for you. Look at the advertisements. Google it. And until they started, but there always were warnings, well, yes, this may cause this, but it hasn't been proven. This may cause this, but it hasn't been proven. Now, a lot of people walk around with those cell phone pieces on their ears, and they talk on their cell phones for a long time. There used to be reports that a lot of people are developing certain lumps around their ears. Right now, you won't see those studies. The moment that you will see them on certain news outlets, they're removed. You try to click on the link, and they say this article no longer exists. They started doing the same thing with food. When it comes to drugs, and when it comes to things that people consume in large quantities, many times those things are kept from the public because there are a lot of people investing in those things. And if something is really good for you, you're not going to find out about it. If something you really don't need, you're going to find out about it, but usually when it's too late. So when I see things like cell phones and people having cell phones in the ear for a very long period of time, or they're driving the whole day, so they have those Bluetooth headsets, or they're working the whole day with it, or you're walking around with a lot of the technologies that we had to be feet away from, and now we're surrounded by all of it for a long period of time, or people going to sleep right by their laptops, or people going to sleep by their cell phones, or people going to sleep by their iPads. Some people wake up and realize, I don't really feel rested. and my cell phone was off, or it was on silent or vibrate mode, but they still don't feel rested. You have to think about how society has changed that way. With the cell phone towers being closer than they were before now, and having access, or these extenders, these are all things that are affecting your life. And I don't think they're adding to it. I think they're subtracting from it. So when it comes to surviving your life, you have to realize, if I'm surrounded by all these gadgets, if I'm surrounded by all these things that make me, supposed to make me connected to the world, but it's actually disconnecting me from the world, it's not only working on me mentally, it's working on me internally, psychologically, it's working on me physically, and I need to do things to combat those things. And sometimes the best thing that you can do, and the hardest thing that you have to do to survive your life, besides asking, what is it doing for me? Is it really my problem? Sometimes the best thing that you can do is just turn it